Hello everyone, today you will hear an interesting story. I've been imbued with action movies and their heroes since childhood. They were so ingrained in my soul and inspired me that I decided to take up sports too, to be at least somewhat like them. There was a boxing section in our town, and I signed up for training. My parents were not against it. On the contrary, they were very supportive. My father was proud and my mother was a little worried, like all mothers. I put all my spirit into my training, and by the time I was 25, I'd already performed many times in the ring and won several times. I naturally had many fans, among whom there were girls who wouldn't give me a break. One day after the fight, with a black eye, I noticed a young girl standing nearby and looking at me intently with some sympathy for my injuries. She came up to me and modestly asked for my autograph. I signed her a piece of paper and looked closely at her face. It seemed to me very familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen her. Do we know each other?
No, but I've watched all your fights. You are so cool. I always believed in you and your victories.
My interest in her only grew. She introduced herself as Kathleen. I decided to take her out to dinner. I wanted to know more about her as I signed her autograph, and she watched the movement of the pen in my fingers so intently. I felt something special about her. But for now, I couldn't hope for anything, but I didn't turn down the opportunity to have a good time. Like when she walked into the restaurant, I felt my heart begin to beat harder. She looked stunning in her outfit, and the smile on her face only added to my excitement. We took seats at a table, and I ordered delicious food for both of us. While waiting for our orders, we struck up a conversation.
You know, Harry, she said, smiling, I've always been interested in sports. Although I can't do it myself for some reason. I think you've come to my fights before, didn't you?
Yes, I just didn't dare come up to you. You're so wonderful and strong, I replied.
Yes, I have talent.
Gradually, our conversation turned to other common interests. We discussed movies, music, and books, and I realized that we really had a lot in common. Our communication was so easy and pleasant, and I felt that I could not let her go. I wanted to meet her again. After dinner, I offered to take her out, and while we were walking down the street, we stopped on a bridge with a great view of the city. I gathered my courage and offered to go out with her. I confessed to her that she was very beautiful, and I liked her. Kathleen agreed. We exchanged phone numbers, and already at the house, she allowed me to kiss her. We started dating. I continued my fights, and she stood in the ring every time and supported me morally. A year later, we got married, and I bought a house for us. But I wasn't going to give up boxing. I continued to train hard, and over the years we were together, I got a lot of wins. Next one day, before another of my fights, when I stepped into the ring, I felt that my opponent was a really serious opponent. He was younger and physically stronger than me. Our fight went on for a long time, and every round was a real test for both of us. We were exchanging a series of strong punches, and I began to realize that this fight would be one of the toughest of my career. But I wasn't going to give up. But throughout the rounds, I responded to his punches and tried to counter-strike. At the end of the fight, When the bell sounded, I was exhausted and exhausted. Kathleen ran up to me, making no secret of her concern and anxiety. "How are you, Harry?" she asked, examining my sore and bleeding face. "I'm fine. I won. That's the main thing." I tried to smile, but my chest hurt a lot. My coach insisted on taking me to the hospital, even though I resisted, assuring him that I was fine, just bruised. But after an x-ray, the doctors confirmed that I had 2 broken ribs and several fractures in my jaw, in addition to a lot of bruising and swelling. After the surgery, I spent 2 more long weeks in the hospital. Kathleen visited me very often with her care and attention. She brought me some fruit and some homemade food. Her support really helped my recovery. Finally, when my condition had improved, the doctors decided that I could be discharged, but they ordered me to observe a strict regime and refrain from fighting for a long time to allow my body to fully recover. This did not make me happy, of course. After all, I needed to keep in shape, and I had been lying in bed for a long time already. I, of course, listened to the doctor's instructions, but I could not just sit and wait. I started going out and occasionally hitting the punching bag that was hanging in our garden. I was so used to working out that I couldn't stop and give it all up. My coach came to my house and supported me as best he could, and with his help, I soon began to get back into shape. "Harry, you're not taking care of yourself at all," Kathleen said when we decided to have dinner in the yard. "It's okay, there's nothing to worry about. I'm almost back to my old form," I replied. "But how are you going to fight? The doctors say," she asked. "I don't care what they say," I interrupted her. "I feel fine, and I'm gonna be back in the ring now." "Yeah, I will," I confirmed. "How are you doing in your greenhouse?" I decided to change the subject.
Great, lots of orders this week, Kathleen replied.
Catherine was in the flower business because she loved flowers in addition to sports. She was very good at making bouquets for different events, and she liked it. She got a job at a local store, and she was in good standing with the owner. One day, I decided to surprise her with a bouquet of her favorite flowers. When she saw them, her eyes lit up, and she gave me a big smile. It made me happy to see her happy. I decided to surprise her and made an anonymous order for a beautiful bouquet, and when it was ready, I came to pick it up.
Kathleen was very surprised. How am I supposed to understand that?
Actually, who was the bouquet for? You wouldn't believe it. But for the most beautiful woman, I defiantly handed it to her. "Oh,
Thank you, she said. Of course.
but if you wanted to give me flowers, you shouldn't have ordered them from me." That's kind of dumb. The surprise was ruined. I didn't understand why she didn't like it and why she reacted that way. I threw the bouquet on the table and walked out of the store. As I was leaving, I noticed Louis, the one who put me in the hospital, parked nearby. I got curious, so I decided to watch him. I got into my car from which I had a clear view of his movements. He went to the store where my wife worked. I could see through the glass of the big window as he chatted with Kathleen, and she smiled sweetly at him. But I understood that it was part of her work process. Pretty soon he was out. I saw no reason to follow him and went home. Tomorrow is my last checkup, and I'm going back to the ring. I told my wife in the evening. Oh, that's good. You won't miss now. Good for you. And I want to challenge Lewis to a fight. What? She almost choked on her tea. But have you forgotten how it ended the last time? Oh, don't worry. It'll be all right. I'll beat him this time. Harry, you shouldn't make such decisions in the heat of the moment. Understand your desire, but he's so big. You better think it over. I've made up my mind. I started to prepare for the fight, and my coach helped me a lot. I don't know why this fight with Lewis was my idea of a fix, but I was very eager to fight him again. One day I came home from training, and I noticed a big, beautiful bouquet in the living room. Oh, I decided to take this one home. No one was buying it, and I didn't want to throw it away because it might wilt soon. Kathleen saw my puzzlement and hastened to explain. I went to take a bath to relax and regain my strength. I skipped dinner and decided to get something to eat before I went to bed. When I was cleaning up after myself from the table, I opened the lid of the garbage can to pour out the leftovers, and I saw a little card there, the kind you usually put in a bouquet of flowers. I just had to reach for it. It's in my subconscious. I thought that this card was from the bouquet we had at home. I opened it and read, "To my sweet fan, with love." I began to guess that there was something wrong here. Taking the card, I went up to our bedroom, where Kathleen was already ensconced in bed and about to fall asleep. I pulled the blanket off her and tossed it playfully at her, saying, "Here, this is for you." And he tossed her the cards. "What is it?" I asked. She asked in a sleepy voice, not knowing what she was doing. "Answer me, where are the flowers from? Who's your favorite fan?" Kathleen seemed to have figured it out. "Tell me, are you cheating on me?"
You got it wrong. I told you it was from the store. There you was, someone placed an order and didn't pick it up. I found the card at home, so I threw it away. How can you ever doubt me?
Her words sounded true. Maybe it was true, and I was just taking it personally. But something told me she was hiding something from me. I left the bedroom and went out to the courtyard on the swing to clear my head. Kathleen stayed in the house. I pondered for a long time, but I wasn't much of a detective. The next day, I met with a friend and asked for information about my upcoming opponent in the ring. But something inside of me was bugging me, and it was something pointing to Lewis. After a while, a friend came to me with the news.
"Listen, Harry, maybe you shouldn't think about him. Why do you need information about him? He's gotta get ready. Tell me what you found out. Believe me, I didn't mean it. But what I found out could really upset you."
"Just tell me."
"Well, I found out from a source that he's secretly doping, and it makes him a lot stronger."
"I know what doping is."
"But it's interesting. I mean, he could get thrown out of fights for that."
But I couldn't get any proof. It's just verbal information. There was a man who confessed to me. He owed me one, but that's not all. What else? "He's dating your wife," he said. He pulled out his phone and showed me some pictures taken this afternoon of Louis and Kathleen kissing and hugging. "I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to upset you." Hectic now. All the puzzles were coming together in my head. I felt the adrenaline surge through me, and I had the urge to take him not only out of the ring but off the face of the earth. Giving up the phone, I jumped out from behind the table in the cafe where my friend and I were meeting and ran outside. I wanted to scream. After all, the woman I loved had hurt me deeply. It was much more painful than when my ribs were broken. I got in my car and raced to her greenhouse. I saw a friend run out after me and yell something at me, but I wasn't listening anymore. I had enough information. I arrived at the flower store and went inside. Not seeing my wife behind the counter, I asked her colleague, "Where's Kathleen?" "She just went out." "I don't know. Maybe she's in the warehouse. Maybe she went out to the yard." "Go look." They let me go look for her because they knew who I was. I went to the yard first, but didn't find her there. Then I went into the storage room. Kathleen was there, standing against the wall with her back turned to me, talking to someone on the phone. "Oh, you bitch." I rushed to her. "What?" She turned around when I knocked the phone out of her hands. "What? Talking to your lover? How dare you?" She looked at the parts of the phone that were crumbling when it hit the floor. "I know you're seeing Lewis. How could you? Especially with him, Harry. I'm sorry, but you're not so athletic anymore." I realized I hadn't calculated my strength, but I saw that she was conscious. I fell in love with him. I couldn't stand it and slapped her so hard she fell to the floor. Kathleen put her fingers to the bruise and wiped away the blood that had seeped from the wound on her lip. She looked at me with hatred in a way that made me realize we had nothing more in common. I left the store. She didn't come home that night. I wanted to call her, but I knew she was with Louis. Several days passed. Kathleen didn't come home. Only once. When I returned from practice, I saw that her things were gone, and there was a note on the table saying that she was leaving me. I'm sorry. A frustration and pain rang high in my heart. My love of boxing had not gone away, so I kept training. Now I was getting even more out of it. I now had a reason to knock Lewis down in the ring, so he could never come back. 6 months went by. Our fight date was coming up. I felt strong and confident. In addition, my friend decided to help me out a little. He had arranged by his own means that the dope Louis was taking would get into his system with an increased dose, which might have been bad for his heart, but he told me about that later. I was getting ready to go into the ring and fight not for points, but for life. By some thoughts of my wife's betrayal and hatred for him gave me strength and anger. I couldn't wait for the fight to be announced. I looked into the hall, and there was Kathleen, but she wasn't rooting for me like she had been before. She was rooting for Lewis. She was even wearing a t-shirt with his name on it. Maybe she was trying to hurt me so that I would let my guard down and lose the fight. But that just turned up the heat. And then when the gong sounded, I started hitting one after another without stopping, as if I had a battery inserted in me. But between punches, I could see that Lewis didn't expect me to be so strong. He didn't expect me to do that. This last time, we'd fought by all the rules of boxing. This time, I didn't care about the rules, though I tried not to break them. But my gloves kept pounding Lewis until he started to give up his position. And then the counter hook landed, and Lewis fell to the floor. The referee started his count, and when he finished, I was declared the winner. I won the fight in the first round, which I didn't even expect. Lewis never regained consciousness. They took him away in an ambulance. As I found out later, he had a serious head injury which affected his general condition, and they found doping in his blood. It was his last fight. Kathleen naturally left him and tried to come back to me, but I wouldn't take her back. She was left alone. Dear listeners, your support is very important to us. If you like our story, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's very motivating for us. We need your feedback to improve our content.